when you're on the streets, it's the mental health that really suffers straight away. It's the trauma of that that really gets to people. And I don't think a lot of us, or those who haven't experienced it, understand that. Like, because we'll say, oh, you know, I've given you money for a hostel, why don't you go to a hostel? But some of them, it's like the trauma is so bad, they can't think straight. They need somebody else's help. We demonize people who beg, but nobody talks about how they ended up that way. So my name is Andrew Mcleay. I was born in Sydney, Australia. I moved to London in 2008, and I work as a homeless support worker for a charity called Ealing Soup Kitchen. I don't remember a lot of my childhood. My parents have been separated since I was 3 years old, so I primarily live with my mum. My father was quite abusive, so he used to beat me in particular very often, and still didn't quite understand why all that stuff was happening to me. I feel a little bittersweet about my life in Australia because I never felt I really achieved anything good. I just felt like I existed rather than actually made anything of myself. I was about 23 and I was working at a supermarket and I wasn't happy, and nothing I did, to be honest, really made me very happy. And I spoke to my mum about it, and she said, why don't you go traveling and see what comes of it?
Heavenly Father, thank you for all the gifts that you give us, in particular the food we've had this morning. May it sustain us and help us to grow.
Amen. I just felt like I needed to go away and being able to heal, and then maybe I could come back a better person. So I thought I'll get a plane ticket and I'll get on the plane and I'll arrive in London and everything will be great. And of course it wasn't, but I didn't know that then. I moved and I had money and I had savings and I had a place to stay initially. But I was staying in a family's house on the couch. Within about 3 or 4 days, I was told that I had to leave because my couch was going to be occupied. Their son was moving back and the only place he could sleep was that couch, so therefore I needed to be gone. In my head, it didn't quite click when I put all my stuff in my suitcase and left that place that I didn't have anywhere to go. And then as I was walking down the street, I was like, oh God, that means I've got nowhere to stay and I don't actually have another viewing today. And then I started to panic and I started to feel anxious and cold, and I didn't quite know what to do or where to go or who to speak to. And I just wandered, and I think I must have walked for sort of 7-8 hours straight, and I was so tired. I didn't know where I was. It was like this weird disorientating thing. I had to take my suitcase and I slept behind a skip. It was very cold, and by the time I went to bed down, it was snowing. I just got a whole bunch of clothes from the suitcase and just threw them all over me. And I used the suitcase as sort of a pillow, and I tried to sleep. It was weird because I had money and I probably could have found a hotel, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know anyone. I don't think common sense entered into my mind. I think I was so shocked when I realized what might be here, the fact that I hadn't had anything lined up, that all the things that you think about afterwards don't enter your mind. So things like hotels and stuff, I didn't know where they were. And I probably walked past some. But I think I was in such a state, really. The more I looked, the less I'd seemed to see. Because what had happened was I moved to England and I think I felt this is going to be the change that I need. And all the stuff and all the problems that perhaps I was trying to get away from, I felt like this could be something different. And when I found that not only was it worse, but I actually didn't even have people like my mum that I could call because I couldn't use my phone. What the hell was I gonna do? And it was just lucky that I managed to sort of remember I had a couple of viewings, and then I managed to find those places. I found the Ealing Soup Kitchen when I first started work. So I started working for St John's Church, and Ealing Soup Kitchen was connected to St John's. I used to go along and help because it was just anything to kind of keep myself sane again. And then I ended up joining a team, so doing one of the weekends. So I'd cook, and I did that for about 1.5 years, up until I got the job with the NHS. And then after 4 or 5 years of working in the NHS, Daphne, the lady who ran the soup kitchen, came up to me and said that she was retiring and that I should apply for it. And I've been doing that ever since. So the Ealing Soup Kitchen is a place that I feel I can really help people in a really practical and tangible way. I think part of the reason I love it is because it's full of characters and people who are really misunderstood and people who have really persevered. So I think for me, there's a feeling that I get them. You don't get choice when you're on the streets. You just have to go by whatever the drop-ins will allow you to do. And sometimes that dictates as to where you go. And the gratitude stays with you. When you're on the streets, you really are grateful for everything you get. And I think when you're in a soup kitchen, they always say please and thank you, and they're always super grateful for everything they get. If they come in and something has happened to them, you will hug them so like strongly that it's like this sort of beautiful moment of like this crazy dysfunctional family, and like you'll put everything aside and you will be there for them because you know what it is like to be alone. It all comes down to displacement. Isolation is the worst thing. Make no mistake, it's not the fact that you don't have a roof over your head, it's the isolation, not being able to communicate, because as people, we need people. And if we can get to them before that isolation kicks in, often you'll find you can get them off the street. If you can't, then the drugs kick in or the alcohol kicks in, and then it takes years and years and years to get somebody back to a place where they can feel as though they are worthwhile members of society. I don't know what we do about that, and I don't know how we help that, but I know that it starts with love. I've been punched, beaten, and all sorts of things working in the soup kitchen, but I can't stop loving them. Like, I have to love them. It's my job to love them. And I can separate their actions from who they are. Part of the way I love people is by painting them, doing something for them that normally other people wouldn't be able to do. And I want people to feel like they don't have to have low self-esteem. They can still feel like they've got something to give and that they're worth something. Makes them feel as though something's done something really special for them. Something that requires a little bit of extra. Why don't you just talk to them? Why don't you just say hello? Like, treat them like they're a normal human being. Do you know how many people, on average, walk past a homeless person in the street? If you're in the city of London and there are tens of thousands of people who are walking past you and you get 1 or 2 responses, can you imagine the pain and the frustration of thinking how invisible you must feel? The biggest issue I think that we have is who has time? People don't have time to stop and talk to them. But if we really want to solve it, then we've got to start by asking them what they want. Don't assume they want money, don't assume they want coffee, ask them. I want them to feel as though they are worthy of help. Even if it doesn't change their lives, they can sleep knowing that somebody cares about them.
I've known Andrew a long time, and he does a lot of good work for the homeless, for the soup kitchens. Everybody can relate to him. He's easy to get on with.
Andrew has been in this position himself, so he has the knowledge, experience and skills to cope with the people. It's a very demanding job.
And I think he does a lot of hours outside of what he needs to.
He helps everybody, he manages all the finance and everything for the soup kitchen, so everybody gets food and clothing. He's a very good person.
He is the absolute, I must give him the utmost respect, and 10 out of 10 for all the work he does.